Hey, hi again. So let's try this second time. Anyway, hi, this is Moss Jackson. Welcome to Mondays with Moss, a weekly broadcast talking about living a great life, how to create happiness, accomplishment, and satisfaction in your personal and professional lives. So recently we've been talking about really dealing with the COVID virus. We're into this almost 6 months or so. And I've been talking about the invisible forces that control our lives. And recently I moved into navigation. We talked a little bit about, are you living life as a victim, as a survivor, or hopefully moving into navigation. And remember, only about 20% of the population are living lives as navigators. And my goal is to help you. Hi, David. And my goal is to help you to move definitely from victim into survivor. Survivor isn't bad. Get a lot done, may not be the most happy person on the planet. And then navigators, where you get a lot done and feel pretty good. So what I'm talking about now is actually moving into 10 skills that you can actually use to navigate a great life. Today I'm talking about empathy. If any of you got to see Vice President Biden do his acceptance speech at the National Democratic Convention last week, perhaps you got to see the little interaction he had with a 13-year-old boy. I'm not sure if his name was Evan, but he was a stutterer. And the next scene after him talking to the boy in class, Joe Biden and the boy is sitting at a table. And it looks like the Biden is talking with him intimately about his own experience and really coaching and supporting him. And later we get to see the little boy actually reading a letter about his experience as a stutterer. I was really touched by that. And I think many of you, if you saw it, were touched too. That has something to do with empathy. And we're going to talk today about what is it, how do you develop it. I want to give you one or two case examples. So I wonder if you could picture that. Have you ever been with someone with whom you, hi Sharon, have you ever been with someone who reached out to you when you're in pain, didn't mock you, didn't humiliate you, but just said, boy, you're having a hard time. I'm really sorry about that. Tell me about what's going on. Rather than just ignoring and say, buck up, it's okay. So empathy is something I think we all want, but many of us don't get enough of, and maybe we don't give. So a couple questions. Do you think you're a connecting kind of person? Hi, David. Do you think you're a connecting person or a disconnecting person? Do you seek out connection? Do you know what empathy is? Is empathy important in a relationship? Is it important in business? Isn't business just business, making money? When your child says, for example, I've had a lousy day, and he's moping around the house, maybe being irritable, what do you do? What do you say back? When your spouse complains about your mess that you've left around or some behavior, how do you respond? Do you say something like, oh yeah? Well, how about the hair you always leave in the sink? That's kind of called a counter-criticism. You feel attacked, so you attack back. Or do you say something like, hey, I can see how that can be annoying. In some ways, I can be quite messy about my clothes. That's called empathic listening. And then you can talk about it to see if you want to change it. And by the way, can empathy ever be a handicap? Maybe we'll look at that too. So what is empathy? Empathy means you're in sync with someone. You're walking on someone else's shoes. You understand what's going on in another person. You see another person's pain. Hi, Alex. So you think important of empathy, both personal and business. Great, thank you. So you see another person's pain and you take the time to reach out and make a connection. I want to give you an example. Not too long ago, I started seeing a father and an 18-year-old boy. The father and the boy are Afro-American. The father grew up in the South, 5 siblings. A father abandoned them. It was tough. And he learned something that probably a lot of Afro-American men think about in America, which is life is dangerous. As a white man, I don't typically think life is dangerous, but now as I've been learning more about Black Lives Matter, I can really appreciate what they go through. Anyway, the father told me that in order to protect his son, he needed to toughen his son up and make sure he never made a mistake and would not get in trouble or get hurt by anybody, police, a businessman, or whatever. Unfortunately, the boy never saw it as protective and caring. He saw it as abusive, disciplinary, angry, authoritarian, and it really squashed the spirit of the boy and really killed off the connection between the father and the boy. When I spoke to the dad initially about that whole style, he explained it to me and he started to cry and said, I really love him. I don't know any other way of protecting my son. Now I'm working with the son and the father and helping the dad turn from a disciplinarian way of showing love to being more empathic, more compassionate. He says to me, Dr. Jackson, this is hard for me. I never learned how to do this, but I really see if I don't do this, I'm going to lose my son. And I'm working with the son on helping the son understand the father's intention, not his behavior. His behavior was abusive, no question about it. But his intention was to be caring. Son is just beginning to turn the corner on that one. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted. So the father is learning the power of empathy, and I'm his empathy coach. Pretty cool. Okay? So, we're born with something called mirror neurons. An example would be, there was a story, I think I heard it on a TED Talk. A baby was crying, maybe a little less than 1 year of age, in a plane, and the mother was trying to nurture it, but nothing seemed to quiet the baby down. And people around the mom and the baby going, shh, oh my God, can't she quiet that kid down? A lot of annoyance. But then a little 3-year-old across the aisle got out of his mommy's lap, walked across the aisle, took the pacifier out of his mouth and gave it to the little baby. That's an example of empathy, a mirror neuron, something got stirred up. We also see this in preschools when kids are in nursery and the one kid starts to cry at a table, maybe all the kids at the table start to cry. One kid starts to giggle, they all giggle. That's empathy. We're able to read other people, be stirred on. And that's the function of the mirror neurons that have been developing in us for millions of years in terms of developing us, particularly over the last 100,000 years, I would guess, as living in tribes. To survive, we need to be connected. Connection is the pathway to survival and navigation, not authoritarianism, not dictating. Empathy can grow or weaken depending upon if we're learning it and if we're reinforced for it. You can develop the habit. The habit then becomes who you are, an empathic human being. Does that appeal to you? So how do you develop it? I have 10 practices I'm going to suggest to you. One is become curious. When someone is upset with you or you're having a conversation where there's a contrary point of view, you might say to yourself, I wonder how I wonder how my partner sees that situation. I wonder what it's like to be that person. Given that person's history, I wonder what he's thinking and feeling. Just become curious. Also, you may want to distinguish between what occurs to you as versus truth. Stop treating your point of view as truth. It's just a point of view. Someone occurs to you. So that baby was occurring to people as an annoyance. To the little 3-year-old, it occurred to the baby, to the person as a little child in need. So what occurs to your occurrence doesn't mean it's true. You may want to check out, hey, this is how this occurs to me. When you spoke that way to me, I took it personally. I got upset. Should I? Did you mean it intentionally to hurt my feelings? Or are you just kind of feeling bummed out and I'm misreading you? Am I being too sensitive? You may want to practice empathic communication and listening. I have several specific things you can say. Hey, tell me how you feel about what just happened. Let's say there was a misunderstanding between you and your spouse driving in the car. And you get annoyed, but then you catch your breath and say, I'm going to practice empathy, empathic listening and communication. So, hey, sweetheart, tell me what happened there. How did you feel about it? Or, hey, so from your perspective, how did you see what I said or what happened? Or, given your thinking, I could really appreciate your feelings. It's not agreeing. You're just acknowledging from his point of view, it occurs to them a certain way. A third way is contain yourself. The world is not conducted or constructed in your image or worldview. You're not the only person in the room. So contain yourself means get over it. Get over it. Stop taking things so personally. Take an interest. Be curious. Another one is be appreciative and service-oriented. Have a little humility. Be responsible when someone's in distress, not just judge them. If a woman's shopping and having trouble taking care of a baby and trying to reach up and get something, maybe you walk over and say, hey, can I help you in any way? it seems like you're kind of struggling taking care of the baby and doing some shopping. At the farmer's market once, about 4 years ago, I was trying to get some wonton soup at the Asian place. And I started to order, and all of a sudden I heard maybe from 6 feet away from me, hey, I'm before you. I felt the sudden jolt of my body. I felt this annoyance, like what is going on here? I caught my breath. I say, hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you were in line before me. I think I was trying to be empathic. I really had to push myself because my instinct was I wanted to lash out. Say, what's the big deal? Okay, but another way of showing empathy, I learned this from my wife. My wife is a good tipper. I think I used to tip about 15%. Now I tip 20%. I can't quite get to 25. My wife can, because she really appreciates the work that service people are doing. Now I'm learning to better appreciate it, so I talk to service people, waiters, waitresses, even the guy who pumps my gas in New Jersey, and I give a tip. And that's showing compassion and empathy, being appreciative. Another way to increase empathy is seek to understand and listen. I remember I worked with a national, excuse me folks, I worked with a National League football coach who wanted to win the Super Bowl. He had played in the Super Bowl, but his team lost. 10 years later, he had an opportunity to rejoin a team and take the team possibly to the Super Bowl. And by listening to his story, we discovered something together, that he grew up with a pretty critical father, like this Afro-American boy is talking about, and he never got the thought that what you're doing is enough. So the coach was a perfectionist, working really, really hard, pushing himself, pushing others, but underneath he had a good heart. He really cared. When he discovered he really had a good heart and he didn't have to be perfect, he relaxed, he talked to his players. 3 years later, he took his team to the Super Bowl. Maybe empathy has something to do with success. Okay? Another technique is to stay open-minded. Can you think creatively and not just fight for your perspective or your position? You don't have to be right. You don't have to die on every hill of your opinion. Another one is be patient. There's no urgency of life and death for the most part. Really, is it worth killing another person over, fighting another person over, opening your mouth and stating your point of view? It might be better just say, hey, let me take a breath. Let me see if I can re-paraphrase what that person said. Okay, so what you're saying to me is, help me better understand that. Maybe if you get a little more information, you can relax and not take it so personally. Another one is get curious. I'm not sure if I mentioned that one already. Having a growth mindset. I'm working with a client who works at a very, very aggressive place, maybe like Microsoft. From what I understand about Microsoft, they're pretty tough on people, and they really expect high performance, like many corporations that have to deal with shareholders. Because back in the 80s and 90s, a theory developed, our most important person is our shareholders. You've got to create shareholder value. Unfortunately, that's often at the expense of the worker. Your most important client is your worker. As a manager, as a leader, you really need to get curious about your workers. Anyway, this particular person is told, we have a growth mindset here in this company. It's okay to make mistakes. Unfortunately, whenever he or anybody makes a mistake, they say things like, that really screwed up. That really was bad. If that continues, your job may be in trouble. So it wasn't a growth mindset. They're not curious. They don't come over and say, hey, I know you've been struggling with this problem lately. Tell me what's going on. Hang in there. Anything I could do to help. I'm here for you. That's a growth mindset. We tolerate, we appreciate mistakes, and we don't say one thing and do another. We don't say we have a growth mindset, we're compassionate, and then you rip a person apart if he makes a mistake or threaten him with being fired. Lastly, stop being critical or complaining. Give up your yeah buts. Are you a yeah butter? Somebody says you do this, like for example, you don't clean up the dishes. Yeah, oh yeah? Well, yeah, but how about you? Give that up. That's childish. That's nasty. If you want to be empathic, if you want to be an a-hole, do that. Do your yeah buts. So, the bottom line, empathy gets stronger the more you practice it. It's a skill. You're born with mirror neurons, but you have to develop the capacity and the skill of being empathic. Are you willing to stop right and get interested in the other person? Compassion is when you take action based upon your empathy. Empathy is relating to the experience of another person. Compassion is saying, hey, can I help? Can I do something? Lend a helping hand. The other day, I was walking down the street. There was a guy older even than me, and he was struggling. And I thought he said, help, help. And some kids were riding on a bike, and they waved their hand, and they drove by. I went over to him and said, can I help you? He said, thank you. I don't need help. I was just telling them to put their helmets on. But I felt empathy. I felt compassion. There were times I stumbled, too, in terms of my balance. It's nice to have a helping hand. So, yeah. Compassion is when you take action based upon empathy. And does your selfishness really serve you? When you get whatever you're going for, that extra dish, that last piece of cake, does it really serve you? Does it really make you feel good, or do you end up feeling a little shame? Also, be gracious when confronted by criticism. You don't have to strike back or defend. Also, lastly, give bigger tips. Give bigger tips. Help people out. Appreciate that their life, they're struggling in the morning just like you and I are. Anyway, that's about empathy. I hope that was helpful to you guys. And if you'd like to learn more about the 10 skills, next week I'm going to do another skill. I'll let you know probably on Wednesday what that next skill will be. I've got 10 great skills, 9 more to go. This was just the first. And I wanted to do it because we're living in an unempathetic time. Our time in America right now is very conflictful, very chaotic, very distrustful. People being suspicious of each other. Politically, we're at a divide. We don't get along. We're not taking the time to be empathic. And I think that's what's destroying us. Hopefully, as we move into 2021, with whatever present we have, there might be a little more empathy on the table. All right, guys. Good seeing you. If anything I could do, let me know. Until next Monday. Bye.